parade commander has received the okay or the authority from Her Excellency to carry on with the parade. So she will now pass specific instructions to the detachments in preparation for the march past.
That we really look forward to on an annual basis.
That is correct. Drill is a major part of the military. From the basic training, from your first day within any military establishment, you commence parade and ceremonial training. It is said in training that the purpose of drill is to produce a serviceman who is proud, who is alert, and who is obedient, and is the basis of all teamwork. So today you will see those 4 attributes clearly manifested by the men and women on parade this morning.
And that is one of the reasons that it validates the comment that you said, that it is a highlight of any service person's career at this point in time to be a part of an occasion like this.
That is correct. And also the citizens as well. Seeing the forces march either on the roads and on the route march which is taking place later on today, as well as those persons here at the Queen's Park Savannah. So it's not just for the persons on parade, but also the citizens of the Republic who are always excited to see us, the serving members, executing these movements with the precision based on the practice and the hard work that would have been put in over their respective careers.
And we see some of these movements and maneuvers have started in the sense that they've turned right.
Yes.
And they're going to march past Her Excellency momentarily.
Correct. So the parade commander would have given them the word of command, shoulder arms, which means putting the arms in the weapons in an upright position, turn them to the right, and they are marching off respective detachments.
So we take some of that in at this point in time.
Yes, we will.
is commanded by Acting Superintendent I. Edwards. Second in command, Acting Superintendent E. Todd. That detachment number 17 is followed with the Municipal Police, Superintendent I.A.N. Second in command is Acting Superintendent K. Kelly Garcia. Detachment number 18, we have the Traffic Wardens. In command there is Supervisor C. Charles. Second in command, Traffic Warden 3, A. Ali.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
Detachment number 19 is followed by number 19. This is the Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross. In command of that detachment, we have Commandant T. Andrews. Detachment number 21, SYSP Milat. In command, we have Petty Officer M. Richardson. Second in command, Petty Officer B. Strong. And the Civilian Conservation Corps. In command, we have Petty Officer T. Alleyne. Detachment number 22, we have the Trinidad and Tobago, the Scout Association of Trinidad and Tobago. In command there, we have Senior Patrol Leader D. Nanlal. Second in command, Senior Patrol Leader M. Jaikaran. Detachment number 23, we have the Pathfinders. In command, we have Regional Uniform Coordinator A. Mulrain. Second in command, Regional Instructor I. Murray. Detachment number 24, the Pentecostal Crusaders. In command here, we have Commissioner K. Alfred. Second in command, we have M. Kassar.
Marching on from your left, ladies and gentlemen, the K9 unit of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. The K9 unit is led by Sergeant Kurt Antwine. The second in command is Instructor Charles of the Police Academy. Dogs have been used in law enforcement from as far back as the 5th century, so it was only a matter of time before this trend was adopted by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Forming in front of you is the number 61.
Police Service K9 branch has come a long way from the days of Superintendent Thomas, who was fondly referred to as Dog Thomas because of his affinity for the K9, and Superintendent Hamilton Bridgman. They give outstanding and yeoman service to the K9 branch of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
Ladies and gentlemen, the K9 unit of the Trinidad and the Tobago Police Service.
Trinidad Trinidad and Tobago Air Guard are about to make their way onto the parade shortly. Additionally, you will witness a drive past. So all of the assets, vehicular assets that are within the national security framework, they will be represented onto these parade. So I'm sure that the audience, both here at the Savannah as well as viewing, are looking forward to seeing the rest of today's proceedings and the splendor and the magnitude that comes with an event of such an auspicious occasion.
And it is really something because, and while we were seeing the detachments marching past, it is an honor to be part of the detachment. But the individuals who are actually holding the colors, even more so.
Correct. The role of the colors officer is a very historic role. Traditionally, in the old days, you're looking at medieval times, the flag represented the regiment or the army that they would have represented, and capturing someone's flag was seen as an ultimate insult and a clear sign that you would have lost the war. So the protection of the flag still remains today. You see the colors on parade, and they are escorted by two individuals with arms.
And we see one of the assets that you would have heralded, yes, actually making its way over the parade ground.
Yeah, so this is one of the Trinidad and Tobago Air Guard's assets. Plays a major role within the national security framework of Trinidad and Tobago. So we'll be witnessing assets coming in shortly. And all of these assets play a very, very important role.
And parts of the parade, like the fly past, when we have those explosions, also speaks to the discipline and the time and effort that would have been invested in the charges in terms of the mounts, the horses, the other animals, the canine unit, and it just speaks to that discipline that is a part of what it is we stand before at this point in time.
Yes, Vicky, that is correct. What you're seeing here, as simple as it looks, it would have brought together a wide variety of agencies, units, personnel who would have dealt with the planning, the operations, the security, the parade and ceremonial executions. So it's a lot of hard work, a lot of effort would have been put into these activities.
And we have another asset?
Yes, so this is the Trinidad and Tobago Air Guard's B-0105 helicopter. It plays a major role in search and rescue operations as well as troop transportation within the national security structure of Trinidad and Tobago. And loud applause as always when the Air Guard flies past.
So it felt as though we just had a wave past as well.
Yes, we had a wave past as well. So it shows the skill and dexterity of the pilot on board, a citizen of our nation. So it also shows the standard and the quality of individuals within the armed forces, the level of qualifications, experience and training that they undertake.
And we see two more approaches.
Unfortunately, this aircraft is adorned with red, white and black on today's Independence Day celebrations.
Definitely, we're seeing a lot of that this morning for obvious reasons. So we've seen airborne assets, and we are looking forward to others now that will be driving past, Lieutenant.
Yes, we are. So shortly, the parade commander will be executing some word of command. She'll be giving the troops on parade an order to go into open order. On completion of that, you will see the undertaking of the drive past of the various units of the national security structure and framework of Trinidad and Tobago, the defense force assets, police assets, fire, prisons. They will drive across the parade square for the audience's good pleasure this morning.
Describe a little more what you mean when you say open order, thank you.
Okay, no problem. So on the parade square, there are specific markings that each individual within the detachment is required to line off on. Open order, based on the marking, provides a bit more space between the ranks. So a close order march, which they would have done for the march past, they would have come into closer proximity to each other, both the rear rank and the front rank. In open order, they would spread apart a bit more. So that's a basic description using layman's terms as to how that is executed. I must say it's truly a beautiful day today, Diki. A really wonderful day. The weather isn't too hot. I know we've been experiencing some really hot conditions. Pretty cool, and the persons on parade seem to be enjoying themselves, and the pride and distinction is being displayed by all persons.
Definitely. I think we missed a hot spell by one day with the weather, inclement weather on Saturday, but that weather on Saturday is not the weather that we're experiencing this morning.
No, it's not.
And we're very grateful for that.
Yes, we are.
Ladies and gentlemen, the motorized units of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, protective services, and the essential services.
other pieces of music that we've heard thus far on the square musical emblems of Trinidad and Tobago, the more we are together. The arrival of the president was heralded by Chiconia, as well as Let's Build a Nation Together for the inspection.
Yes, the mass bands on parade today, they would have executed those songs so splendidly, and you would have heard the level of effort and skill that would have been displayed by those musicians. We have 4 bands joining together, forming the mass bands, the regiment band, the prison service band, the police band, as well as the Trinidad and Tobago fire service band as well. So excellent display of musicianship today on today's Independence Day celebrations.
And we would have also heard some of the effort that goes into making sure that there is one complete and unified sound, with the previous conversation with Major Kester Francis, former Director of Music for the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force.
Yes, Major Francis has played a significant role in the history of the Defence Force and the nation of Trinidad and Tobago with his skill and experience as a musician and as a former Director of Music. He would have laid the foundation for what we would have seen here this month.
And was utilized as the first postal service in Trinidad and Tobago. The duties of the branch include countrywide patrol duties in both Trinidad and Tobago, crowd control duties,
Protests and carnival celebrations, guards of honor, and escort duties to the president at parades and to dignitaries visiting the country.
Commissioner of Police, Ian Meister.
This is always another beautiful part of the Independence Day procedure. We would have seen the K9 unit of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service execute their duties earlier on today. And now we have the mounted branch led by Assistant Commissioner of Police, Ian Meister.
Acting Assistant Commissioner of Police, Ian Meister, has a very unique tradition to follow. Mounted branch has followed, for example, former Commissioner of Police.
I always marvel at the discipline and control of the horses, how they seem to operate specifically under the command of the persons in charge of them. And they always bring an excellent display of pomp and posterity to any Independence Day proceeding.
And also speaks to the skill of the riders as well, because we see, yes, they're using their legs, but they have one hand on the reins because the other hand is holding that lance.
That is correct. That is correct. Even the senior officers on parade as well, who would have spent time with the mounted branch getting prepared and ready to execute these duties. We have 4 officers on horseback today, from the parade commander, the parade second in command, Commander Zilman King, the parade adjutant, Major Benny, and the aide to the parade commander, Squadron Leader Buki.
As the and providing riding courses for military personnel and civilians, as well as therapeutic riding classes for children.
you today Acting Corporal Joseph, PC Maharaj, PC Bedo, PC Ramsamy. Standard bearer is Sergeant Philip. The bugler is Corporal Pavi. The 2nd Division Sergeant Thomas. WPC Fontaine, PC Lewis, PC Emmanuel, and the rear guard comprises of Acting Corporal Williams and Woman Police Constable Cordner. Ladies and gentlemen, the mounted branch of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
And let us please be reminded that they are providing the presidential escort for Her Excellency the President on what is her inaugural visit to the Independence Day Parade.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Mounted Branch.
This morning, nodding their heads in approval.
One of the things that I always look at with the mounted branch is the control that they're able to hold over their mounts during the national salute. Definitely is something.
These horses are very, very well trained. Very well trained. I'm aware that even outside of ceremonial responsibilities, they often prepare them for loud noises and large crowds by simulating specific activities so that so when you see them operate a certain way, it is because of the actual training that not just the riders go through, but the horses as well.
Definitely, work has gone, investment has gone into this, and even the level of training, we've been told this morning that they also help riding lessons for special needs individuals as well.
Excellent community engagement. So we'd have just witnessed the advance in review order. The parade commander would have given that instruction, and they would have made 14 marching pieces forward and halted. They are going into the shoulder arms position, and then we will hear the national anthem played.
And the principal office holders.
Another beautiful rendition of the national anthem, followed by the 21-gun salute, which was fired in honor of the 61st anniversary of the independence of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, now we saw the order that the dignitaries would have arrived. Will it be the same order that they leave in?
No, so they will be going now in reverse order. Her Excellency, the President, will depart first, and she will be by the right. Then subsequent reverse order of the departures will take place. The dignitaries will subsequently depart, and then the parade commander will order the final words of command for today's celebration.
As we see her on the monitor.
Yes, sir.
So what other signs mark the departure of the President, Lieutenant, in terms of, I believe there will also be a fanfare?
Yes, there will be a fanfare that will be played by the combined bands. This is a significant piece of music that only is played for Her Excellency.
Departure of all principal office holders
for today's ceremony, and again she is accompanied by the Chief of Defence Staff, Air Vice Marshal Darrell Daniel, and escorted by the Mounted Branch.
This departure is followed by Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable
Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley and Mrs. Rowley.
We now see the departure of Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and Mrs. Sharon Rowley, escorted by the Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, Minister of National Security, and the Chief of Protocol.
We next have the departure of the Chief Justice, Mr. Justice Ivan Archie and Miss Archie. Mrs. Archie.
So in keeping with the departure in reverse order, we now see the Prime Minister and his wife departing.
You would have noticed service personnel accompanying each of the individuals. For the purpose of today's parade, all of the dignitaries have been appointed aides who hold the rank of captain in the regiment, lieutenant in the Coast Guard, or flight lieutenant in the Air Guard as their personal aides for today's activities. troops on parade holding true to form, maintaining that discipline and posture of excellence as we have seen since the commencement of today's proceedings, as we continue looking on at the departures of the dignitaries.
So we are currently seeing the departure of the Chief Justice, the Honorable Mr. Justice Ivor Archie, ORTT, and Mrs. Denise Rodriguez Archie, they were escorted by the Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, the Minister of National Security, and the Chief of Protocol. Time now for the departure of the Minister of National Security. The Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, Minister of National Security, and Mrs. Margaret Hines are about to
perform in commencement of being the first arrival. As per standard protocol, as we would have mentioned earlier, they would have departed in reverse order, with the Minister of National Security being the final dignitary who will be departing. And then the parade will resume with the parade commander giving final instructions to the detachments.
So in terms of that march off, we saw the reverse order in departures. Will we see reverse order in the contingents?
No, we won't. So the armed detachments will step off first, and they will be led by specific bands. So the mass bands will separate into their individual bands, and then they will march off of the square and proceed for the route march, which takes place through Port of Spain.
So we would have had some individuals of the wider public here at the parade ground, but there will also be individuals who are looking to see the parade marching through the streets of Port of Spain, and they go to the Ken Cook Field in St. James Police Barracks. What happens there?
So the route marches are a really great highlight. I think for the persons on parade as well, they always look forward to hearing the cheers of the individuals who will come out and support in their red clothing, waving flags and shouting and screaming in support. They would march to the police barracks in St. James, and their final instructions will be given. The parade is falling out at that point in time, and that honestly signifies the end of the parade. However, being Independence Day, there would be a series of events and functions taking place in celebration of today's 61st anniversary.
So we see the contingent has turned to the right. What is happening at this point in time now?
So they would have given instructions to prepare for the march past or the march out of the Queen's Park Savannah. The officers, the commissioned officers on parade who lead the detachments, they would go to the front with the detachment commander going to the front, and the detachment second command going to the rear, part of the detachment, and they will then be waiting for the bands to take their positions. The parade commander will then give the order to quick march, and they would exit the Queen's Park Savannah and begin the commencement of today's route march. The parade commander will give the order for the armed detachments to step off, and the parade second in command will give the order for the unarmed detachments to step off. So you can see the mass bands have been splitting up. This is the regiment band taking the lead, and they will lead the parade as we leave the Savannah and proceed on to the route march. Based on the individual detachments, various bands will intersect and will lead those areas musically.
Once again, as they are getting themselves ready to begin, we just see the talent and skill on display here, Independence Day, and it makes me remember the Edinburgh International Military Tattoo that we would have had representation at, showing what we are capable of as Trinidad and Tobago. And we're doing this today on the 61st of observation of our independence.
The Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force Field Orchestra are truly ambassadors of Trinidad and Tobago. They always represent extremely well wherever they go, and that tattoo is a perfect demonstration of that.
Are we going to look at some of that demonstration right now?
Time for the big day itself, Independence Day Parade. The government of Trinidad and Tobago is profoundly indebted to those public officers who year after year work tirelessly towards the success of the Independence Day Parade effort. And we are in that era, we are in that time in our lives where we need and we recognize the need for encouraging the youth. The Trinidad and Tobago Cadet Force led by police band and call drums under Captain Peter Sawyer, and the Cadet Force detachment under the command of Captain I.A.N. Dignitaries. The Trinidad Cadet Force providing uninterrupted service from 1910 to present. outstanding young citizens for the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Tobago Prison Service Band, led by Supervisor of Prisons, Ricardo Hassan Ali. Band, ladies and gentlemen. They came all the way from Miaro. They are 52 strong, of young people ranging from age 11 to 19. Ladies and gentlemen, they are followed by the San Fernando District Scouts, Sea Scouts to be exact, and they all represent the Scout Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Put your hands together for the youth of our nation, ladies and gentlemen. They have worked hard for the last 8 weeks and they're out here sweating and toiling just for you. Still celebrating our youth is the Pathfinders Band going to pass before you shortly. These are all demonstrations of the fact that there are organizations out here that are putting in the work to groom younger people to become responsible adults in society. They all are generally self-funded with some help, but they do need to be properly financed in order to make a bigger and better program. Still representing our youth, the Pentecostal Crusaders, bringing up the rear. Bringing up the rear on horseback is the parade adjutant, Major S. Benny. Ladies and gentlemen, the ushers amongst you will usher members of Parliament, senators, and members of the House of Representatives and the Diplomatic Corps at this time. Those persons with tickets and invitations for the toast to the nation will follow the departure of the members of the House of Representatives, Parliament, senators, etc., and the diplomatic corps. They would be followed by members of the judiciary. Those of us with tickets and invitations for the Toast to the Nation and choose to be transported by a shuttle, the shuttle will be outside. Those of us who choose to make the small trek across the road, please do so.
So we've just seen the march off of the parade ground. Lieutenant Valet, I want to ask you for your closing comments. Thank you.
Firstly, Dickie, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity for working with you today on this tremendous occasion. Today truly was a wonderful and an excellent display of patriotism, national pride and dedication to duty by all of the persons on parade today. And it is an honor to be here. It is an honor to celebrate the 61st anniversary of our independence. And to you, your family and the entire management and staff at the Trinidad and Tobago Television, happy Independence Day and all God's richest blessings to you as we continue as a nation. I look forward to 62 and much more.
Thank you, and likewise, there was a certain contingent that was driving past and I saw you kind of lift up and square your shoulders. I won't say who it was.
Okay, all right. I'll have to...
But I see you had a little bit of, yes man, that's my crew, that's my bad. But I want to thank you as well, Lieutenant Karen Valet. We also want to thank Major Kester Francis and National Scout Commissioner Mark Ainsley John. We invite you to stay tuned to TTT 8:30 to 9 p.m. tonight. We are going to show the very first Independence Day Parade, and this is coming your way courtesy of the Information Division. So we say thank you as well to InfoDiv. Technical crew, we thank you very much for making this broadcast possible. I also want to selfishly take the opportunity to say happy birthday TTT Limited. It is our birthday today, and last but not least, you the viewers, thank you so much for tuning into the broadcast. This has been the Independence Day Parade 2023. Happy Independence.
The birth of TTT. On the historic birth of the sovereign state, the Trinidad and Tobago Television was born. TTT transmitted its services through two channels, TTT channels 2 and 13. TTT's origins trace back to the visionary aspirations of Lord Roy Thompson, a Canadian businessman. As TTT made its debut, its first broadcast featured nightly news readings at 7 p.m. Led by news anchor Mervyn Telfer, TTT's original management consisted of non-nationals who installed cutting-edge equipment and trained a local workforce. Formally inaugurated on November 1st, 1962, TTT rapidly became a focal point of the nation's cultural and informational landscape. TTT resonated with viewers through a multitude of captivating programs, from its flagship news program Panorama to engaging shows like Scouting for Talent, Mastana Bahar, 12 and Under, and Community Dateline. TTT embraced a rich variety of content that mirrored the nation's diversity.
Thank you for watching TTT's coverage of the 2023 Independence Day Parade. TTT.
This Independence Day holiday, join TTT for a spectacular Independence Day Parade broadcast. Get ready to experience the heartwarming surge of patriotism as we honor our heroes, first responders, and those who have dedicated their lives to protecting our freedom. Whether you're on the parade route or from the comfort of your home, tune in to TTT 91.1 FM and TTT Live Online on August 31st at 8 a.m. as we celebrate the magic of freedom. Happy Independence Day, Trinidad and Tobago.
The melodic conqueror of TNT's 1962 Independence Calypso crown. In 1962, Cade Simon, also known as Lord Bryner, emerged as the triumphant figure in the realm of Calypso, claiming the coveted title of Independence Calypso King. In 1962, the Independence Calypso show, held at City Hall, was packed to capacity. When the results were announced, Bryner had to run and jump in a fiercely contested Calypso competition, surpassing other esteemed contenders such as the Mighty Sparrow, Nap Hepburn, and the Mighty Bomber, who secured second, third, and fourth positions respectively. This achievement earned Lord Bryner a substantial cash prize of $1,000. Bryner went on to record 57-inch records and LPs. On at least one of his calypsos, Bob Marley was a backup chorus singer.
Antigua is my second home, and fellas, those of you that are allergic to extremely beautiful women, don't come Antigua, right? Because there's problems in here.
Come here next year.
Visit here
and come to I.A.N. Soca.
At 10:30 a.m., play with the 12 King Mega Bowl called. Pick 2 the numbers 26 and 11 in that order. Pick 4 the numbers 8, 9, 2 and 6 in that order. At 1 p.m., play with the 25 Morocco Mega Bonus Ball called. Pick 2 the numbers 27 and 35 in that order. Pick 4 the numbers 5, 9, 6 and 8 in that order. At 4 p.m., play with number 2, Old Lady, 3 Mega Bonus Balls called. Pick 2 the numbers 35 and 1 in that order. Pick 4 the numbers 1, 8, 1 and 6 in that order. And at 7 p.m., play with number 7, Hog, Mega Bonus Ball called. Pick 2 the numbers 13 and 20 in that order. Pick 4 the numbers 2, 1, 4 and 8 in that order. Cashbot, the numbers 9, 7, 17, 2, 9, 1.
Stand by 45 will be the first take out. now will be coming to you. 3, 2, 1. With the on the air.
From the love of liberty in the place of love and prayer.
The birth of a nation. The end of a British colonial era. As our beloved nation took this giant step of independence, Trinidad and Tobago Television held up the mirror, reflecting our brand new start. Our nation's first birthday. The station's first live broadcast. 2 defining moments celebrated as one.
I think it meant for some people that we had entered the world as a country because we had this new plaything.
We were young, we were vibrant, we were fresh, we were new. And so what TTT was an opportunity for the nation to be informed, entertained, right, and educated.
It represented ambition. It represented the quest to be among the nations of the world with television coverage.
The government set up television stations in like Woodford Square and a few other squares, but people didn't have sets at that time.
The set count was only 1,500 television sets. The population at that time might have just been around 800,000 in Trinidad and Tobago.
In fact, TTT did not exist as a building at that time. It was just a concrete slab. From what I understand from reading, they built a quick hut on the slab with enough room for Mervyn Telfer, who was the first presenter on television.
The new national station provided our young nation with an early collection of local celebrities.
The TTT story is a big story. It's a long story. It's populated by huge personalities.
People like Trevor MacDonald, Clyde Alleyne, Mervyn Telfer, who was the very first news anchor at TTT.
Even Peter Minshall later on was a news presenter.
Don Proudfoot, Bobby Thomas,
Alison Hennessy, Albert Charles, Wellington Yenchong, Jamaluddin Samad, and the list goes on. All names of persons who were in various roles and capacities at TTT.
I love Mr. Rafi Knowles.
You probably don't know the name, but Rafi Knowles was a legendary sports presenter on Panorama. He would memorize the whole sports broadcast. He was also meticulous with his statistics, and he would learn all those statistics and he would just spout them out.
The eyes and ears of a nation, giving us a glimpse into some of the earliest viral worthy moments.
Blue Boy going on and the whole stage is full of people.
Everybody, start the wave, start the wave, start the wave, start the wave. Everybody, start the wave, start the wave, start the wave, start the wave. On it on the floor, on it on the floor, on it on the floor. Let me go.
There's Shadow singing Pak Pak, but the crowd is just losing its mind. I'm so glad that we had a television station there to capture those things.
A lot could be said about TTT as an institution.
I born 2 years after independence, so we're the first independent generation. I'm watching TTT back in the day as the only station that was your conduit to the world.
Trinidad and Tobago Television was created by Canadian businessman Roy Thompson, then owner of the Thompson Organization. Back then, a partnership existed between the Thompson Organization, Rediffusion, a business that distributed radio and TV signals, CBS, and the government of Trinidad and Tobago, who then owned a 10% share in the television station. Channels 2 and 13 were the two channels used to transmit the service. The initial operational management was a combination of foreign and local individuals. The success of any nation depends on the collective efforts of its people. Much like their newly independent country, the new employees of TTT would roll up their sleeves, committed and dedicated to this unknown territory despite their color, creed and race.
The training I received was very hands-on.
Salaries started at $375 a month for a trainee. You know, $375 went a long way when you're living by your mother and you don't really have any expenses.
The experienced editors trained me, so I sat and I looked at them and I watched what they were doing, and then you go in and you try to get your hands dirty. As an editor, what we did was we had to make sure that there was no obscene content. We had to hold the film and clean the film as it goes through the reels, and clean the film to make sure there were no holes in the film and there were no slices.
When I left high school, I walked into TTT at 17 and said I want a job. Because I had seen an after-school program where people were actually on the TV looking like me. And they're like, we don't hire minors. So come back when you're 18. So I went away and I came back when I was 18 and said, okay, I'm 18, I want a job. And they made me wait for like 3 months, but that's a whole other story. I would start as a trainee reporter in the newsroom. I never wanted to be a reporter. I mean, it used to be, felt good to be talking to my English literature teacher who told me, you know, I was like a crazy person, basically. So I used to like, I'm telling you the news, you have to listen to me. I found it to be a place where I had opportunities and I took them.
Seeing your name rolling in a credit in a show was still something that made you feel proud that you worked on this, especially if you're proud of the show. I mean, there were some shows I told them I don't want no credit. You know what I mean?
We had pride in what we were doing back then.
But and we also had great, you know, camaraderie in terms of lining together.
The station's early programming was a reflection of its ownership, consisting of mainly British and American culture.
You had shows like Bonanza, of course. Bonanza was one of the big shows.
It was an outing for us to go to the neighbor's house to look at Bonanza on a Friday evening. One villager had a TV set.
We would rent our television set in those days. You didn't buy one in the early days. You rented it from sports and games and tele-renters. You rent it per month, just like you would rent your Ready Fusion set and so on.
There was a shop in the village, a Chinese shop, where we collected our mail. And I went to the shop and the shopkeeper said to me, there is a letter here for you. And I saw the picture of the 4-star cast. Adam, Ben, Hoss, and Little Joe. And I began to shout and show everybody in the shop. I got a personal autographed photograph from the Bonanza crew.
The Lucille Ball show, I Love Lucy, Hogan's Heroes. Those are some of the really big shows in those days.
Do you think he's satisfied? Why don't you ask him?
We grew up on those monumental films. And there's a story that I can tell related to me by one of the seniors at TTT by the name of Errol Harry Lal, a caller to the station, a female caller to the station in the early life of TTT, called for Little Joe to speak with Little Joe. And Errol, the witty person he was, said to the lady, hold on ma'am, let me check. And he walked around and came back, took up the phone and said to her, I'm sorry, he just rode off.
sense, you know.
You know, we used to run them on a Sunday. They were like 4 or 5 hours long, and we had to go through those tapes and clean them actually, because they would come in reels, and we had to make sure that the reels didn't have holes so they wouldn't skip when they're being shown. We actually enjoy looking at them because they had this storyline. They will grip you and pull you in.
Love. Listening to Lata Mangeshkar later on in life because of this cultural grounding of looking at Bollywood films.
I mean, you have to give thanks for that cultural richness. You know, we're not operating in ignorance. It's like, wow, I know this, I'm familiar with this.
Sunny day, sweeping up clouds away, on my way to where the air is sweet.
Well, of course, all of us at that age was Sesame Street and Electric Company eventually.
Up to today, I can still sing so many songs from Sesame Street because that was something that we watched with a sort of, you know, religious obsessiveness.
And do the duck, rubber duck, duck, rubber duck, rubber duck, duck, rubber duck, duck, rubber duck, duck, rubber duck, duck, rubber duck.
But the station's first programming manager, Farouk Mohammed, had his eyes set on doing something more.
I always saw Trinidad and Tobago as a multicultural, a poly nation with many cultures, and so I tried to reflect on the screen faces from all of the various ethnic groups in Trinidad and Tobago. So there was a combination of cultural programming and sport.
Best Village, Indian Cultural Magazine, No Boundaries, Community Dateline, That Week with Yusuf Ali, Not for Women Only, College Quiz, Calypso Showcase, News Capsule, Play Your Cards Right, the first game show in the country, Team Dance Party, Rikki Tikki, Parade, Indian Variety, Mastana Bahar, Scouting for Talent, 12 and Under, Teen Talent, Party Time, Talking It Out. That's just some of the content.
I mean, those things, you know, kind of make you feel real in the society that you live in. And the things that I do, they're not totally invisible, and they're not totally things that are hidden and denied from the national conversation about what it means to be Trinidadian or Tobagonian.
As an Asian, someone who I could identify with across all lines. Who owns the story for me is even as important as who tells the story. And so for many years, you had our stories being told by other people who had a different impression of who we are. And so we grew up thinking, this is beauty. This is what's important. These are the persons I need to emulate. This is my impression of what the world looks like. And it may not be our world.
Our very first Prime Minister, Dr. Eric Williams, in one of his initial speeches said that, you know, the future way forward for the people of the Caribbean is to be the subjects of their story and not the objects, so not being defined by others. We have to take on the task of defining ourselves, to ourselves, for ourselves. I was like a kind of a TV guide in the house. Like I knew what shows were coming up on what day and what not. I was inherently a TV peon. I was drawn to TV. I was intrigued by TV. I would watch almost anything that was on the TV at the time. I remember one of the main things I got from early television